Okay, so brief explanation of what we're doing today. So this is technically Rambam Bekius, but we are hijacking it to do part 4 of our shiur that we do in our Tefilah series, which is why we can't and shouldn't change the nusach Tefilah. And the reason why we're doing this during Rambam Bekius is because our Tefilah shiur tomorrow night will get canceled, and I want to move on and do something in Chanukah on Thursday. And since I was only going to be focusing on the Rambam shitah anyway, then it's appropriate to do in Rambam Bekius because we're not going to be doing other stuff. And this also gives me even more leeway to not meet other people's expectations to go through halacha l'maisa, which I would never promise to do anyway, but I didn't want to do that. I know people were expecting that. So in Rambam Bekius, we don't do halacha l'maisa anyway. So we're just doing, trying to figure out a theoretical understanding of the Rambam. But also I feel like this is going to be an interesting methodology thing because it was going to put the Rambam to the test of, did he make good on his promise? Okay, his promise that you can figure out anything from the Mishnah Torah itself without making recourse to other works. So the plan is going to be to read a couple halachos in the Mishnah Torah addressing this, and then read excerpts from 4 tshuvos. And if the Rambam is right, the tshuvos will not be introducing anything like that's radically new or that we wouldn't be able to figure out from the Mishnah Torah. And so we'll just see if that, obviously we're not the judges of whether the Rambam succeeded, but yeah. Correct. Yeah. We won't need other sources prior to the Mishnah Torah, like the Gemara or the Pirush Mishnayos. Yeah. And I should also mention, I tried to find all of the tshuvos that had to do with this topic. I don't quite know what's going on with the Rambam's tshuvos. Like I looked on Bar Ilan, and Bar Ilan has a ton of tshuvos, and then I looked in the Per Hador, which I think is the good one, the hard copy, and then there was another copy. I don't know what the thing is with the numberings or like which ones are, if there are more recent ones that Bar Ilan has and the other ones don't. So I tried to find all the ones that are relevant. It's possible I'm missing some, but I just want to give that disclaimer. Okay, so we're going to start by just reviewing the halachos we did in the Tefilah shiur because there's only 2 of them and they're the basis of everything else. First one is in Hilchos Brachos, Perek Aleph, sorry, not Brachos, Kriyat Shema. That's the first one. You'll see why I made the slip in a second. Kriyat Shema, Perek Aleph, Halacha Zayin. Okay, so this is obviously about Kriyat Shema, but this is about the brachos Kriyat Shema. Okay, and he introduced it with the. Well, let's just read pasuk halacha Hey. Okay, just to start off with, Kishe hakore kore Kriyat Shema mavarach lefaneha ula'achareha. When the reader reads Kriyat Shema, then he should bless before it and after it. Yom mavarach shtayim lefaneha v'achas la'achareha u'balala mavarach shtayim lefaneha u'shtayim la'achareha. In the day, he should make 2 before it and 1 after it, and at night, he should make 2 before it and 2 after it. Okay, so then he tells us what the brachos are. Okay, so that's the bracha rishona shalafneha bayom yotzer or shniya la avas olam ahavtanu v'shala achreha emes v'yatziv. Okay, so that's the same. Oh no, that's not the same as Ashkenazim because Ashkenazim make ava rabba, right? Bracha rishona shalafneha balayla mariv arvim shniya la avas olam amcha yisrael ahavta ubracha rishona shalachreha emes emuna shniya la hashkivinu. Okay. Bracha rishona shalafneha bein bayom bein balayla poseach ba babaruch v'chosim ba babaruch. Okay, so this is where it gets into the sugya. The bracha before the Shema, the first bracha before the Shema, whether by day or whether by night, begins with baruch and ends with baruch. Ushar birchoseha chosim b'chol achas mehen bebaruch ve'ein lahen psicha. The rest of the brachos of its brachos we conclude in all of them with. We conclude with Baruch, but we don't open with Baruch. Okay, so I believe this is the first place in the Mishnah Torah that the Rambam talks about making brachos. Okay, makes sense, right? There's not going to be any in Sefer Hamada, I don't think. Okay, so that's why he now introduces with this introduction here. Yeah, you have a possibility? I'll Streifas Iran Hagdalfas, Nidalchas, yeah. Yeah, I don't think there is a bracha that he holds that you say before you destroy Avodah Zarah. I don't know why, but
I know some words.
Before, really interesting.
Well,
yeah.
I know because the question of all the medical and like.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. That would be the candidate, though, right? Because like the Rambam, the classic joke notwithstanding, the Rambam does not hold that you make a bracha before dying al Kiddush Hashem, right? And what else would there be? Obviously, you're not going to have it in Emunah B'Shem, Yedias Hashem, Yichud Hashem, Avos Hashem, Yiras Hashem,
Right.
Yeah, right. Halachas b'drachav. Yeah, fine. Anyway, so I think this is the first time he mentions brachos. Right. Right. So this is why he now goes into this introduction here. Okay, so he says like this: brachos. Yeah. He doesn't, which is very interesting that you mention it, because ordinarily the Rambam's practice, we did this last year. The Rambam's usual practice is he brings down within each section of halachos about a mitzvah, the halacha of the birchos of mitzvah. So for example, he has all the halachos of birchos of mitzvah in, in Hilchos Brachos, in the last parak, I believe. But then let's say like in Lulav, he mentions the bracha on Lulav. And in Netilas Yadayim, he mentions Netilas Yadayim. But he doesn't do it for Talmud Torah. He does that in Hilchos Tefilah. And it's possible that that's because the birchos of Torah have a separate status. You know, they're not just an ordinary birchos of mitzvah, you know, like you make more than one, you know, it doesn't just follow the formula of a Asher Kichan B'Mitzvah V'Tivanu, but it is a good question. Yeah, that would have been the candidate. You're right. Okay, but now he says like this: brachos elu. So this is in Perak Aleph Halacha Zayin of Krishma. Brachos elu, second paragraph. Im shar kol habrachos ha'aruchos b'fi kol Yisrael. These blessings, along with the other blessings that are arranged in the mouths of all of Israel, Ezra beis dino tignum. Ezra and his beis din established them. Ve'in adam rashai lifchos mehen v'lo l'hosif alehen. And no person is permitted to diminish from them or to add to them. Okay, now what does that mean? To diminish from them or add to them? What's plain pshat there? Right. So it sounds like to change them, right? But let's go on. Okay. Makom shehiskinu lachtom bebaruch eno rashai shalo lachtom. A place where they establish that you should conclude with baruch, one is not permitted to not conclude with it. Umakom shehiskinu shalo lachtom eno rashai lachtom. And a place where they establish that you should not conclude in a rashai lachtam, then you're not permitted to conclude with it. Okay, so for example, if you wanted to, in the second bracha of Krishma, if you wanted to start it off with Baruch Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam ahavas olam ahavtanu, you would not be permitted to do that, and also adding to the end, right? Like Brei Nefashos. If you want to conclude Brei Nefashos with a Baruch Hashem, you know, at the end, then you're not allowed to do that. Okay. Malcolm Shiskinu Liftoch Baruch Eno. Wait, did I just read? Malcolm? No, I did just read that. Where am I now? Flawless over?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait a minute. No, he does say this place. Okay, sorry. Malcolm Shiskinu Lachtom Baruch Eno Rasha Shalo Lachtom. Malcolm Shiskinu Shalo Lachtom Eno Rasha Lachtom. Malcolm Shiskinu Shalo Liftoch Baruch Eno Rasha Liftoch. Malcolm Shiskinu Liftoch Eno Rasha Shalo Liftoch. I just roll them all into one. Okay. Klal shel davar. Oh, so now that's why I asked the question, because when he says you're not allowed to detract or to add, right? So it sounds like this. So there's two ways to read this. It could be a separate din, meaning that you can't change them or you can't like diminish, take away from them or add to them, and separately you can't modify the chasimos and the psichos, right? Or the other way to read it is, you can't detract or add, and the types of adding and detracting he's talking about here are with the psichos and the chasimos. But then he says, klal shel davar, the sum of the matter, kol hamashane mimatbea shetabu chachamim bebrachos harizeh toeh. Anyone who changes from the, again, matbea is literally the coinage that they coined for brachos, that the chachamim coined for brachos, is only making a mistake. V'chozer u'mevarach kamatbea, and he has to go back and say in accordance with the coinage.
I didn't realize that actually went so far back.
Oh, matbea?
That coinage is like.
Oh yeah, yeah, I guess so.
Modern.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I guess, I mean, they I don't know when they first started minting coins, but it's got to have been soon after that the term came in. Yeah. So now the question is, what does he mean by matbea, right? Because when he said klal shel davar, that seems to be like universalizing beyond the two examples he just gave.
Right.
So does this mean like any changes in the bracha, you know, right? That you're making a mistake and you have to go back and make the bracha like the matbea. So if you say that, we're going to run into a problem when we read Hilchos Brachos in a second. But if you say that this is just summarizing what he just said, then it seems like very redundant, you know, like that you can't mess with the psicha and the chasima, right? Then if that's synonymous with matbea, then like why does he have to say klal shel davar, you know?
It wouldn't seem more detailed. Like I want to extrapolate what that means.
Yeah.
Okay, like, you would add-
Like the words, right? Like modifying the words at all, right?
Like anyone can jump.
Exactly.
Anyone can jump at a coin, that's not.
Right. That is a good point. The analogy with the coinage is that any little change in the mold is going to make a different coin. Okay, so keep that in mind. So I think that is pshat, that you can't make any changes, and if you make any changes, you're making a mistake, and you got to go back and do it again. Anyone who doesn't say emes v'yatziv in shacharis or emes emuna in mariv has not fulfilled his obligation. Now that's another question. Why does he have to say that? Didn't he just say that if you change the matbea, then you got to go back and make it again? So if you omitted emes v'yatziv? Well, so the question is like this: what does he mean? Kol she'eino omer emes v'yatziv? Does he mean those words, or does he mean that whole bracha? If he means those words and you're not yotze your chiyuv of bracha, then why is he saying it? So if he means omitting the entire thing, then does he mean you're not yotze your chovas kriya shema? Which I think some people do hold, right? That I mean it's a Gemara, not that we need Gemara for. Right, Kriya Shema, right? Kriya Shema, but then that becomes very weird that you're somehow jeopardizing your chiyuv of Kriya Shema by failing to make a bracha that's presumably derabanan. Yeah, right, and right. That's true. I mean, you could say that they set it up to be that way. Yeah. Okay. So now, keeping this in mind, and we are going to come back to this because we will have to in a second. Go to Hilchos Brachos, which is second to the last section in Ahava. I believe it's the second to last section, or is it the last section? Yeah, second to last. Perek Aleph, Halacha. We're going to do Hey and Vav. Okay. Yeah.
Right. Could this, or I guess the previous Rambam is at least saying against it, give like let's say because you were stopping whether to do bracha, you decide to not, I guess, change the chasima, and they're saying Hashem thing where I guess it has to take a choice time to double check against that thing that means something. You could you say bracha Hashem, or just like as opposed to saying bracha the action.
So he's going to address that in what we're going to read right now. So let's come back to that question after we read this. So he says, so this is in Hilchos Brachos. So the very beginning, he introduces the types of bracha. He says there's one bracha from the Torah, which is Birkas Hamazon, and then Midivrei Sofrim, they establish brachos on before all hana'ah, which is on eating and on aromas, and then Birkas HaMitzvah before. This is in Hilchos Brachos, Perek Aleph.
With Ava?
In Ahava, yeah. And then they establish Birkas HaMitzvah, and then brachos of awe or fear, which is on phenomena. Okay, fine. So then he says, let's just read Dalet just to get to rev into it. The nimsu kol brachos kul and shlosha minin. Turns out that all the brachos are of three types: brachos hahanaya, blessings of pleasure, ubirchos mitzvos, and blessings of mitzvah, ubirchos hoda'ah, and blessings of hoda'ah, of thanks. This is, I think, another girsa difference. So the footnote, my footnote on Al Torah says kach tukan b'ksav yad Oxford. So Oxford is the one that the Rambam signed off on. Okay, that the Ksav Yad Oxford, the Rambam changed it to Hoda'ah. B'Mahadur Kafech, it says Hayira. It says blessings of Yira. What does yours say? Or does it have both?
Same footnote.
Same footnote? Yeah, what does yours say? Does it say Hoda or Yira at the end of in Dalet?
Yira.
Yira, okay, yeah. Yeah, so this is I think I mentioned that Kafech sometimes goes against the Muga. So this is one of the examples. Shehin Derech, Sheva Hodaya Ubakasha. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure he probably explains it somewhere, but I just haven't read it. Shehin derech shevach v'hodaya ubakasha kedei lizkor sabori tame uliyira mimeno. And it's funny because I mean he does say uliyira mimeno, but that these third brachos are by way of praise and thanks and request in order to remember the Creator constantly and to be in awe of Him. Okay, now we get to our halacha, one of our two halachos. V'nusach kol habrachos, the formulation of all the brachos. Now this is another thing. In the Mishnah Torah, the Rambam uses three words to describe the text of the bracha. In Kriya Shema that we just read, he calls it the matbea. Okay. In Hilchos Tefilah, he calls it for Tefilah, he calls it the Mishnah HaTefilah, and he also calls it the Nusach. And here he calls it the Nusach. Nusach, I don't know what the literal word Nusach means. I mean, I think it means formulation. I don't know what the etymology is. Ezra ubeistino tiknum. Ezra and his beistin established it. Now here's what he says. V'in roy l'shanosan V'lo lahosif al achas mehen v'lo ligroa mimena. It is not proper to change them, to change the brachos. That's a lot less ambiguous than changing the matbea habracha.
Isn't it the same?
So it's either the same or it's less ambiguous. Because I was saying matbea you could read to mean the mode, but he doesn't say the word change and he doesn't say the word nusach. He says, oh, just to clarify what I meant earlier, when he says matbea shetavu chachamim, either matbea is synonymous with nusach, which is weird that he uses two different terms, or matbea means whether the bracha opens and closes with baruch, So either way, it seems like we got it covered that you can't change the matbea and you can't change the nusach, and v'lo hosif al achas man, and to add on to any of the brachos, v'lo ligroa mimena, and to take away. So the way I like reading it now is in Kriya Shema, he's saying you can't mess with the baruchs, and here he's saying you can't mess with any part of the bracha. And the only problem is why does he split it up? Yeah, right. Okay, but this also will explain something else. He says, okay, but I'll confuse something. Anyone who changes from the matbea that the Chachamim established in brachos is only making a mistake. And any bracha that does not have a mention of the name, okay, the name of God, and malchus, and kingship is not a bracha, unless it is adjacent to its friend, meaning that you have a bracha that did have the name and malchus, and then you have another bracha after it that doesn't have the name and malchus. Okay, but then one more halakha, and this is going to answer your question, Yosef, or address it at least. Any of the brachos could be said in any language. Okay, but this is provided that you say it in accordance with the inyan that the chachamim established. What does that mean? Who knows? And if he changed the matbea, and if he changed the matbea, then since he mentioned a name of God and malchus and the inyan habracha, even in a secular language, then he's yotze. So what's the major problem here? He just said you're not, right? So this is the most direct stira is in Kriya Shema. He says, Kol hamashanim imabea shetavu chachamim babrachos harizeh toeh v'chozer umavarach kamatbea. And here he's saying, V'imshina es hamatbea hoil v'hiskir askar u'malchus v'inyan habracha afilu b'lishon chol yata. So this sounds like you are yotze. So the nafkamina case obviously is when you change it, but you preserve the inyan and the haskara and the malchus. So do you have to go back and say it or not? So this is problematic. Yeah. And it's just confusing. Like it seems like this could have, I don't know. Seems like there's a multiplicity of statements that the Rambam is saying here that make it more confusing the more statements he makes. You got a bunch of different terminologies for nusach and harizeh toeh and imshina and lashon b'diavad. Yeah. Okay. He has a problem. So we have two routes here. We can look at the Mefarshim, the Nosei Kelim on the Rambam here. I think are somewhat unanimous. I don't know if they're all unanimous, but they all quote this distinction here. Let's just read this really quickly. I know we don't usually go to the Nosei Kelim, but we're going to do it now. We're going to be subversive by looking at Mefarshim on the Rambam. Okay. Yeah. I know you don't have in there, but yeah. Okay. So this is in the Kesef Mishnah, midway through Dibra Masal V'chol HaMashane. Actually, I'll read it from the top. V'chol HaMashane, Perek Ketzim Mevarchin. This is in Brachos, yeah, Ketzim Mevarchin. Memdaf Amud Beis. Ra'a pas na'ev amar kama na'e pazo baruch hamakom shebara'a. So if a guy saw a piece of bread and he said, "What a nice bread! Blessed is the one who created it." Or he saw a ra'a te'ina na'e, he sees a beautiful fig. Amar kama na'e te'ina zo baruch hamakom shebara'a yatza. Divrei Rabbi Meir. So according to Rabbi Meir, you're yotze. Okay. Rabbi Yossi Omer kol hamashanim imabea shetavu chachamim bebrachos lo yatze yidei chavasa. Anyone who changes, Rabbi Yossi says, anyone who changes from the matbea that the chachamim established in brachos is not yotze. All right. I think this is Kashya Li. Okay. Lama Shina Rabbeinu Halashon because of Eno Ela Toeh. Why does the Rambam change the lashon of the Gemara and say Eno Ela Toeh instead of Lo Yatza? V'chein, so that's his first question. Why does the Rambam change the lashon? I mean, you would think that Lo Yatza is a halachic statement. Yeah, right. That's what you think, right? So then he says, V'chein yesh ledaktek lama kasav ve'ein roi l'shanosam. Why does he say it is not roi to change them? Okay, meaning ein roi seems like even less than lo yatza. Ein roi sounds like you shouldn't do it, but if you did it, it's not so bad. All right, so here comes his chakira. Venira lomar detre gavne shinoi. Oh, you see, Kesef Mishnah was a brisker. No, venira lomar detre gavne shinoi. There are two types of changes in the nusach. Ha'echad shehu omer nusach habracha shetiknu chachamim ella shehu mosif ba o goreh mimena. One type of change is you say the formulation of the bracha that the chachamim established, but you add to it or you detract from it. O shehu omer ke'en nusach shetiknu chachamim, aval hu omer osa b'milos acheros. Or you say something that's similar to the formulation that the chachamim said, but you use different words. Him romazos lenusach shetiknu chazal, but you're still like referencing the nusach that Chazal said. The kevin shekavanas devarav ola lama shetiknu chazal, since the intent in your words lines up with what Chazal established, in kantaos, then there's no error here. Aval in roy lazos kain. So there's no error, meaning you are yotze, but you shouldn't do this. So that's change number one, is you make minor deviations. Hashinui hasheni, we'll give examples in a second after we see both categories. Hashinui hasheni, hu shemeshani kavanas habracha, is you change the intent of the bracha. Kagon baruch hamakom shebara'a, blessed is the one who created it. Shehi bracha kolelas. That's a universal bracha. V'chazal tiknu lo avarech al kol davar b'pratus hamotzi lecha min haaretz b'rei pri ha'etz v'kiyota. So Chazal set up particular brachos. V'alzeh kasav she'ino ela toeh. That's when he says you're only making a mistake. Klomar v'kevin detoehu lo yatsa yidei chavaso uked Rabbi Yossi. So the Kesef Mishnah is learning that the Rambam paskins like Rabbi Yossi, which makes sense because it's not we don't like paskin like Rabbi Meir, and that he does mean lo yatsa, even though he says eno ela toeh, but that's only in cases where you deviate from the intent of Chazal. But if you change the words but keep the intent, then that's fine. It's not fine. It's you shouldn't do it, but you're yotze. V'al v'ayin le'el, or v'o is ayin le'el. Well, I don't know what the. Oh yeah, it could be v'odish lamar. Yeah, v'odish lamar depluxa de Reb Meir Reb Yehuda. Lav mishum shebara'ah. Was it Reb Yehuda or was it Reb Yossi? Or is there? Did someone expanded a ratio in a way that they weren't supposed to? Okay, I don't know. So you could say that's why the Rambam is disagreeing with Rabbi Meir, not because of the changing the inyan, but because it doesn't mention Shem and Malchus, right? Baruch HaMakom. So I guess, either that is the shame, but you didn't have malchus, or that's not even the shame. Yeah, that makes sense, right? So according to everyone, if you said who created it, then you're yotze according to everybody. Right? Because that's like shehakol niyed b'dvarav. Mikomakam afa pishimaskir shemu malchus v'omer inyan habrachos b'shinoi toehu dema betza l'shanos. So you're still in error because and you shouldn't do it. What are you going to get from doing it? But you're still yotze. So when he says eno elatoa, that's referring to the statement above. That's referring to it's not roy to change it. Iker, that's the essential reading. Ilu lepirusha kama tikshi mi gara mi barich rachman mare dahai pita. Yeah, so he ends up concluding basically that as long as you go with the inyan that Chazal were masaking, even if it's universalizing and they made it particular, right? Then like they said, make a bracha on bread specifically, and you said shakol ni b'varo. As long as you mention the shame and malchus, and then the vaguest of the inyans of the bracha, like blessing God for creating something, I guess. So that's the question, right? Is how far can you go in deviating and still say that you're preserving the inyan of bracha? What was I going to say though? Yeah. So does this reading of the Rambam work out? So what it does not work with is the Rambam statement in the Kriya of Chol HaMashanim Min Matbea Shetavu Chachamim B'Brachos Choser Muvarech. But that could be the way I wanted to read it, which is if you change the psicha and the Inyan. Yeah, the only thing I have a hard time with that there. The reason why it's a tough reading is here he says Kol Mashanim Min Be'er Shetavu Chachamim Eno Ela Toa. We're saying, say it again. Is not yet. I thought he ended up concluding. Wait, did I just get it wrong?
And then the later when it's
Yeah. So the Kesef Mishnah ends up saying that that Toa means that you're making a mistake, but you're still Yotze, which is why I would have a hard time saying that it's changing the Inyan in Kriya Shema. Yeah.
Could I say that? Could I say when you say Shema, you're already saying the Inyan, so the bracha can't be about an Inyan because you're already getting out of Shema as it said about the bracha itself, or does that not work?
That's interesting. You mean could the Inyan come from elsewhere? Like from the Shema itself, or you're saying that the Inyan is instilled into the brachos because these are brachos of the Shema? That's interesting.
But I guess it's somehow. I guess the Shema would cover any Indian thing, so it's just all this remains is the bracha.
That's a really interesting svara. I would this would require. So I'll tell you what this would require. I'm not saying this to invalidate or validate. It would require going into what is special about the brachos of Kriya Shema, which is a whole sugya, right? That's a really interesting question. Yeah, it's a different kind of bracha. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It is strange. Let's just see what the Kesef Mishnah says on this Chol Mashanim Min Be'er Shetavu Chachamim B'Brachos. Let's see here. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, so here's what he says. I haven't read this yet. Malcolm Shizkinu Lachtam, Mishnah Sof Perakama de Brachos, Malcolm Sha'amru Laharich Eno Rashay Lakatzer, Lakatzer Eno Rashay Laharich. Lachtam Eno Rashay Shlo Lachtam Eno Rashay Lachtam. So that's saying what the Rambam said in different words, which is you can't make short brachos long and long brachos short. Amar Uviyushami Amar Rabbi Yudan Matbea Katzar Poseach Babarach Eno Chosim Babarach Matbea Arach Poseach V'Chosim Babarach. Uvitosefta de Brachos. So there it's using Matbea. A short matbea opens with baruch and doesn't close with baruch. Matbea aruch opens and closes with baruch. So there it's using matbea to be the format of the bracha. Format is a good word, right? Not nusach. For the way he's using matbea here. Uvitosefta de Brachos perakama malkum she'amru laharich in rashay lakatzer lakatzer in rashay laharich lachtam in rashay shlo lachtam in rashay lachtam liftoach b'barach in rashay shlo liftoach in rashay liftoach v'kafu lashon Rabbeinu. So the Rambam is getting this from a Tosefta. V'kasav Rabbeinu b'firush hamishna shenikreis brach birkas yotzir arucha v'avas olam katsara fi shekol bracha sheish b'haschalasa barach u'b'sofa barach nikras arucha v'sheino kain nikras katsara v'im kain pirush mishnah l'das Rabbeinu. Okay, he doesn't go into the issue. Oh, here we go. This is what I want to get to. Kasav haramach kol mashana mimat be'ah v'chulei v'chozim mevarech v'lo nehira me'ahu uvda dahu tana da'amar barich rachmana mari dahai pita v'gam me'ahu da'amar diyahavcha lan v'lo yahavcha la'afra upatru oso milahodos alfi yishishim mimatbea habracha b'birkas hagomel uminimin shina mimatbea birkas hazan yalpin yata alkan lashono. So he doesn't answer it. So he says there's a kasha from the case in the Gemara, which was referenced by the Kesef Mishnah earlier, that if you say barich rachmana mari dahai pita, blessed is the merciful one, master of this bread. So then in the Gemara it says he was Yotze. V'gam mehahu da'amar diyah. This second case I don't get. Diyahiv lach, diyahivcha lach, v'lo yahavcha la'afra. I don't know how to read that. Yahavcha lan, v'lo yahavcha la'afra. You gave it to us and you didn't give us to the dust. And he was poter him from giving hoda'ah, even though he changed the matbea of the bracha of birkas hagomel. And then minimin is the name of a Tana, I think, right? Minimin raya, or right? I don't know. Shina mi matbea birkas hazan alpichin yata. So he doesn't really explain the difference. Okay, so what we have so far from the Rambam basically is if you mess with the matbea, with the format of the bracha, then you have to go back. And you could say that that is different because you're not saying the type of bracha that they warranted. But within each type of bracha, as long as you preserve the inyan, the shem, and the malchus, then you're good. And the only question we have is how far can you stray from the inyan and still be considered like the inyan? Okay, so now we go to the chuvos of the Rambam. Okay, and the first one's the longest, but the most important one. I put these in order of importance in terms of the centrality to the sugya, in my opinion. Okay, all right. So the first one, according to Bar Ilan numbering, is in Siman Reish Nun Daled, but I think the numbering is different in different editions. Sha'ala b'davar ma'amar ha'mishnah ve'elu ne'emarim b'chol lashon. So this is the question on the statement in the Mishnah of elu ne'emarim b'chol lashon. So this is the people asking the question. Parsha Sota. So this is a quote from the Mishnah. Parsha Sota uvidui meiser ukriya shema utfila ubirkas hamazon. So it says, oh, sorry, I quoted this wrong. She'ela b'davar ma'amar ha'mishnah. Quote. Ve'elu ne'emarim b'chol lashon. Parsha Sota vidui meiser kriya shema utfila ubirkas hamazon. There's a Mishnah in Sota that says, I think it's in Sota, that you can say all of these in any language, and it includes Tefilah and birkas hamazon. Okay, end quote. Shinira milashono habarura. It seems from the clear language, shesomchen al ha'inyanim levad v'lo ha'milim, that we rely on the contents and not on the words. By the way, part of the difficulty here is inyan is hard to translate, right? Content, idea, subject, theme. You know, you could translate it different ways. But he's saying here, it sounds like we only care about the inyan, not the words. Because if we care about the words, how could you say it in any lashon, right? Yeah, it is interesting, right? You would think that Kriya Shema, you'd have to say the exact, right? Yeah, it's that's what you would think, right? Yeah, it's weird. Yet it's not set up like a Kriya. Like there's no like you don't have to read from Klaf or anything like that. Strange. Yeah. V'shehapiutim shechubru lemoadim. Okay, now this is something. Okay, let me back up here. Have you ever seen in Machzorim for Yom Tovim? There are like these alternate versions of the brachos of Kriya Shema.
Yeah, in that no one ever says. Yeah,
they're beauty that no one ever says. Right. I've been in a shul once that on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur says them, I think. But for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I've never been in any shul that says them for Sukkot and Pesach and Shavuos. And I think the only one that we are nohig to do is Ashkenazim. I don't know about Sfardim, but Ashkenazim have these expanded versions of the brachos before Kriya Shema on Shacharis of Shabbos, right? Like Adon, Kel Adon. What was that? I don't know whether Sfarim do it or not. I'm not familiar. It's possible they do. I just don't know.
My father actually recommends for the thinking live on
yeah, exactly. It's way less confusing, and you don't have to do all the confusing page turners. So a lot of these questions are going to be asking about these insertions, which apparently were way more common back then, even in Mariv and stuff. So he says, if you say that we don't care about the words and only the inyan, and that the liturgical poems that they composed for the Moadim, as long as the ideas are preserved in their universal sense, then you could be yotze. Even if you didn't mention the content of each and every particular, except for the conclusion of the bracha alone. So slight modification of what I said, by the way. I think some of these, I don't think these were just putim that were added. I think these were also putim that changed the contents of the bracha, kind of like how on Yom Tov, then some people have the minhag of like changing the bracha of ritzeh to have a different chasima, you know, oscha levadcha bira na'avod or whatever for birkas kohanim. You know, on Musaf, sorry, on Musaf. Yeah, but yeah, I didn't mean for all of them, yeah. Correct, yeah, right. But or don't people, right? Don't people also say like Oseh HaShalom for Yom Noraim? Yeah, right, yeah. Right. But I'm saying like it sounds like, yeah, right, yeah. So like, I guess what he's saying here is I don't really know. I wish I had access to the putim the Rambam was referring to, but apparently they would change around stuff. So basically the question is, the whole bracha didn't accept the chasima, and according to the Rambam's logic and according to this Mishnah, it should be that as long as you preserve the shem, malchus, and inyan, then you're good, right? So You could say that, but it's kind of hard to say if the Rambam would be modeh. Right. Well, I would say. I mean, I would say especially for bracha katsara, like if you only say baruch ta. Right. If you say the brachas l'chasima, that's true. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about that example. If instead of saying hamotzi, then you say shahakoni b'dvaro, then you're yosei.
It's the second word of Shemaz, or if you say, I guess it's equivalent of may the rains not come and the dew not come, you're still yosei.
Oh yeah, that's funny because you're still saying the theme.
Yeah,
that's funny.
On the other hand, I'm not gonna say more. I don't remember if it's still say the theme or it's something else. Like I'm forgetting the deals, so maybe not the best raya.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's raising a good point though. Even if you don't remember the details, because in addition to the question Chaim asked, which is how far can you deviate from the inyan and still be the inyan? That's a universal question, but then also every single bracha, you have to know what the inyan is. You know, I would have said that the inyan of Birkas Hamotzi is a bracha about bread because they were masaki in a specific bracha for that. Yeah. Okay. So let's say like in the case with the rains, right? If the inyan habracha is God's gvura, so then it would stand to reason that as long as you mention something about God and rain, then that's gvura, you know.
I guess that he can. I guess I see your point. If you can also show off the race, it's also a shot.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Ubal b'talmud ma'amarim acherim shenira mehem shesomchim al nusach chazal b'milosav ha'ivrios. Okay, but there are other statements in the Talmud that it would seem from that we rely on the particular Hebrew formulation of the words that Chazal established. Okay, so that goes against what we just said. Mehem, for example, mashi hikpidu al mila achas. We find certain cases when they're makpid on a single word. Vihi ahavas olam ba'ava rabba. Okay, so the Gemara, I guess, I don't know, I'm not familiar with this Gemara inside, that it says we're makpid on avas olam in ava rabba. V'chein kol shelo amar emes v'yatziv shachris ve'emes ve'emuna arvis lo yasa yidei chavasa. So that the questioner is saying basically, if you said emes emuna in shachris and emes v'yatziv in marev, it would seem to be you're not yotze, even though yatziv and emuna seem to be the same thing. They both of them mean firm. The omram zal kolam shanamim b'chachamim brachos ino elatoeh. That also seems like if you change any coinage of the brachos, then you're not yotze. V'amru gamkin im ba lomar b'sof kol bracha u'bracha me'ein kol bracha u'bracha omer. They say that if you want to say at the end of every bracha things that are in line with the theme of the bracha, then you can say it. V'chein shimon pekuli histir yodchas brachos ala seder b'fnei ram gamliel v'hachiyuvim asher chivu b'kriyashma v'hadiuk asher zachru v'atznaim hanizkarim b'brachos amazon asher heim hefer miksasam o shelo amar miksasam v'hiktim o icher v'saramin haseder shetiknu lo yatzei dechovaso. So there are all these cases. I don't know how he's learning each of these cases he brought, and I'm not going to go into it right now. It sounds like they're makpid on keeping everything exactly in the same order. V'chein mamar hamashane. Sorry, a Mishnah. Same thing with the statement of the Mishnah. About Korin also lelawazos balaz, he sheksuva balaz, Vitanya giftis legiftim v'ivris leivrim. This is by Megillah. Asher near, or maybe it's by Kriyas Torah. Near mehem shehu lechatchila, v'achach nemar shehu yatza shemashmauso diavad. So there are these other cases where it seems like if you change it, you shouldn't change it lechatchila, but if you do, then you're yotze. Ki amar achkach v'halaos sheshama ashuris yatza. Yitav hadraso hakdosha levar kol mashakadim zacharo v'shishcharo kaful minam shemaim. Okay, fine. So saying basically, Rambam, tell us like what you can and can't change and how much things have to be in line with the Indian. Again, I'm only focusing on this for the brachos on Tefilah, not for all these other cases of the rayas. Okay, so now the Rambam says like this, and we are only really concerned. This is not the whole shuva. I think I just copied the first part. He says, "Hatshuva asur l'shanos mimatbeya shetavu chachamim b'brachos b'shum panim." So it is usher to change from the matbeya that the chachamim established in any way in brachos. V'chol mashane ta, and anyone who changes has made a mistake. Umasha hevesa raya min elu nemarim b'chol lashon eno raya. That which you brought as a proof from elu nemarim b'chol lashon is not a proof. L'fi hu eno mosif al ha'inyanim ve'eno goreya mehem. Because you're not adding on to the concepts and not taking away from them. Ela mashane halashon levad. There, it's just changing the language. V'einze k'mo ha'piyutim asher him tosefes inyanim v'hava'as devarim harbe she'ina mi'inyan ha'tfilah. There, with the piyutim, they're changing the contents and bringing in many contents that are not of the subject of the Tefilah. V'nosafim lezeh mishkalim v'nigunam, also their rhythm, their meter, I guess, and their melody. Yotzas Tefilah migeter Tefilah v'nasis l'schok, and they're changing something which they're taking out of the definition of Tefilah and making it into a joke, into a mockery. Yeah. So stop here for 1 second here. It sounds like he's saying here, he's making a different distinction. He's saying that really you preserve the inyanim, and changing the language within the inyanim is not a problem. But if you add inyanim, then even if you had the inyan from before, then that's usher, right? But are you yotze? He hasn't yet said that you're not yotze unless you interpret the eno ela toeh, hamashane toeh, as not being yotze. So let's keep this in mind. Oh, I can definitely testify to this. This is the reason, meaning the addition of these piyutim is one of the biggest reasons for the lack of kavana, and the fact that the masses makilim rosh l'shocheach be'emsa hatfilah, they are frivolous and they bow in the middle of tefillah. I don't know what he was referring to there. Because they sense that these things are not obligatory, right? They get, I guess, you see this happening is that if you add all this stuff into the brachos, people can tell what's added sometimes. And so they just like, these are songs that we're singing, like I think there is a, well, people don't even take the Chazar Sashat seriously. So, it depends on what shul you're in, I guess.
Or like during the actual Chazar shots, I guess that was not between seriously like the piyutim the same war. Right.
Well, I'll give you an example of this that is like that, where people will repeat words, right, as part of the melody. And that only got in there. Well, you don't know, but that got in there. Right. But, because of the emphasis on the songs. And like, you can see how people getting mixed up between what's the ikar and what's the addition, Okay. V'nosaf, in addition to this, so these piyutim are sometimes the words of singers, lo tamid chachamim, not chachamim. Achiyu ru'im l'hischanin b'divreihem u'lhiskarev behem le'elokim v'shiasiru min advarim shechibru hanavim u'shemadregas hanavim. Okay, we talked about this in this Tefilah shiur that it's proper that we should only supplicate using the words and get close to God using words that were composed by Nevi'im or people who were on the level of Nevi'im, not just singers. Al kulam shalom v'ratzon elokim umash amar yatsa. Okay, but on all of these things you are yotze. Okay, harihu mishamevin ashuris v'giftis. Harihu mishamevin ashuris v'giftis. Yeah, I don't know what that means either. It sounds like he's doing a play on the lashon from the Gemara Megillah. Vayoser roy sheyikra. Oh, sorry. You know what? Maybe I accidentally deleted part of this. Sorry, that's not supposed to be in here. That's part of his. You know what? I have to be responsible here. Hold on. I have to go to the original thing because I think I actually cut out the wrong part of this. Give me 1 second here. I got to go to Bar Ilan. This is Siman Reish Nun Daled. Should be able to find this pretty quickly. Bar Ilan, Shilos Uchuvos.
They don't have like on
No, I don't even think they have it on Sfaria. All like this, like I think Bar Ilan was created for this, for Shilos and Chuvos initially. All the Chuvos of all the Rishonim and Achronim that exist, Reish Nun Daled. Yeah, one day. Thank you, Turo. All right. Okay. This is an alumnus account, so I can access this. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So you can get Bar Ilan. Yeah, it is. Yeah, you should totally do that. Yeah. I bet. Well, I think you probably have it during your actual enrollment. How does it end? Umash amar yat. Oh, sorry. Valkum halashon v'ratzon elokim. Umash amar yatsa harihu mi shemevin ashuris. Yeah. Oh, weird. I guess I actually just delete. Oh, I know what happened. I was trying to delete the Yud Beis, and I think I deleted a couple extra words by mistake because it copied in the footnote.
Oh.
All right, so that's about his other question. Okay, fine. So what we see here, though, I think, so that last part, I think that was going off of his original question. Al kulam hashalom. Wait, I got to read this again. Al kulam hashalom v'ratzon elokim umash amar yatsa. What does this mean? Is that talking about the Megillah case? I'm not sure. Okay, but hold on to this thought because we got to read a couple more teshuvos, and I think we'll get the full picture. Okay, let's do the next one. Reish Samech. Okay, Shallah Hakola Shnei Inyanim, and we're only going to read one Inyan. The Orena B'Davar Masha Nahagu Alexandria B'Leila Shabbasos Umote Shabbasos Lomar B'Mari Brachos Shechibru HaMu'ucharim Asher Matsanum B'Sidur Rav Sadia Gaon Zal Mekuyamos V'Hitir LaOmran V'Hein Asher Kala Ma'asa B'Yom Hashvi V'Chule B'Leil Shabbos V'Hamavdi B'Kosh L'Chol B'Leil Motzi Shabbos. So basically on Leil Shabbos and Leil Motzi Shabbos, then they would modify or add the brachos, these other brachos that were composed later. Vishamanu min hanosim v'habayim elenu. We've heard from travelers that have come to us. Shirov toshav Iraq, v'Suria, v'Artzos, Edom, v'Noagim behen v'omri osam. So we've heard from people that these are widespread in Hangim. Vishamanu sheb'moshavu hagadol yeromim hu megane osan umonel omrabo. And we've heard that you, I think you Rambam, prevent people from saying this, and you object to it. Lo yadanu hasiba b'zeh. We don't know why. Im mishum she'asar lomran klal. If it's usher to say them at all, and that's why you're preventing people from saying it. Or is it really mutter? Or because you just like don't want to endorse this. Okay, so explain to us why. So basically the case was people were saying these like alternate versions of the brachos, and they heard the Rambam objected, but they didn't know if he objected because it's usher or because he just didn't like them for whatever reason. Hatshuva, answer. Elo brachos kulin yeshben shinuim mimatbea habrachos. Hemi sug hachizun hamafursam b'chol haratos. So these all involve a change in the matbea of the brachos. Sounds like using matbea as nusach here and in the last one. And it's known what type of style of singing this is in all the lands this is referring to. The ikrazem minhag yidbak bo hadabek lefi kvius hachazanim, and the main reason people cling to this is because of the establishment of the singers. Lo lefi kvius tamid chachamim is not based on what the tamid chachamim established. Okay, meaning that this was promulgated by chazanim, not by tamid chachamim who knew what they were doing. Sof davar asur l'shanos bebrachos min hamatbea shetavu chachamim. It's the sum of the matter is it's usher to change the matbea that the chachamim established, and not to switch them with the putim that that were composed by the people at the end. But if you do use these, you're yotze because they're preserving the intentions of the brachos. Okay. So this does seem to be in line with the reading we have of the Mishnah Torah, that it's usher to change the brachos in any way. Okay, well, it's in line with one thing and not in line with another thing. He is learning, seems to be matbea means changing the wording of the brachos, unless the minhag did involve modifying the chasimos and the pesichos, which is possible. But then he's saying that as long as you preserve the inyanim, then that's fine. Okay, the kavanos, he's saying, kavanos of brachos. Okay, two more, and these are shorter. Sheila, the Toreno bedavar shinui lashon habrachos b'leila shabbasos motzei shabbasos ukeshirach uscharchem kafel. I'm gonna start ending my letters that way. No, I'm just kidding. So same question, same exact question. Okay, what's the deal with these brachos in the nights on Shabbos nights and Motzei Shabbos? Hatshuva l'shanos osan brachos b'shabbasos v'zlasin hu taus below safek. Okay, it's definitely a mistake to change them. Choil machazikim b'zeh hatzibor. This is interesting. Since the tzibor clings to them, v'hadavar maybe l'idei machlokas, and it's going to bring you to machlokas. Meaning, if you try to interfere, roy lanicho. Better for you to leave them be. Okay. This is a political answer, right? It's not a huge blemish in the halacha, I guess, because you're still preserving the intent of the brachos. And the measure of error in them is just like a minute amount compared to the avonos of the customs of all these other tziburim, which they think are actual halacha, meaning all these other congregations are making so many other mistakes in actual halacha that don't freak out about like changing this. Okay, leave them be. Since they will remain established, And if you don't daven them, someone else is going to daven them. So it's better for you to daven them in front of them. Now, I don't know if he's advising this person who was like a chazan and was being forced to say it in front of these people, or if he just means like he's part of the tzibor, and the Rambam is saying like, don't even deviate from what they're saying, I'm not sure, because it sounded like he was talking to him as a chazan, saying if you don't do it, they're going to get someone else to do it, Ve'en chashash im tiskarv el halashon ha'amitis v'taskil b'zo halashon baruch Hashem Elokim v'chalam asher b'dvaro ma'ariv arvim b'chachma v'kala ma'asav b'yom hashvi v'yakrihu Shabbos. Or Ahavas Olam Beis Yisrael Amcha Ahavta Ulaman Huna Amusim V'chulei. So it doesn't matter, or you don't have to worry if they come close to the true lashon and begin with the regular lashon of the bracha and then segue into the piyut. V'brachos shalach kriyishma in chashash gadol b'zeh v'hen. And the brachos after kriyishma, there's no big worry in them. Uvmotzei Shabbos hiskil Taskil asher bidvaro ma'ariv arvim hamavdi ben kodesh l'chol v'chulei. Avas olam beis Yisrael amcha havta osano hivdalta lios l'chal la'am kadosh v'chulei. Amrzos kihu ofen hayoser tov ein chashash bo. So I don't, it sounds like he's giving him a solution of just like start off with the right way to say the bracha. But okay, last one, and this is the short.
Just saying that those are things you don't have to worry about.
Well, it's weird he says you don't have to worry about it, because after already saying like you don't have to worry if they change the entire thing, it's weird that he says, and if you worry about how it's coming close to the correct bracha, it seems like less of a worry. I'm not sure what to make of it. But here's just one last one, and then we'll try to synthesize it. She'ela v'yarina b'davar mashi yizkir hadraso b'perek vav mihelos tefilah aval lo yishal lo b'shlos rishonos lo b'shlosh achronos. Okay, so the Rambam says, we actually didn't read this halacha, but this is talking about putting bakashos in the Shemona Esrei. Let's just look at this in Perek Vav in Hilchos Tefilah, because I think the lashon is important here. I don't know which halacha it is. Let's see. Tefilah, Perek Vav, Rishonos. So this is in halacha Gimel. Oh, so this is how to make bakashos in your Tefilah. Okay. Ketzad. Actually, let's go to halacha beis. That's where we start off. I think hamispala ima tzibor, one who's davening with the community. Lo yarich b'tefilah su yasser midai, should not prolong his tefillah more than enough. Okay, whatever that is. Aval beino levinatmo, but in private, harshis biado, you could do it. You have the option. Im ba lomar achar tefillah so afilu kaseder vidu yom kippurim omer. Even if you want to say something as long as the seder vidu yom kippurim, you can do it. So too, if you want to add to each bracha of the middle brachos in line with the theme of the bracha, you can add. Okay, that's presumably in your private Shemona Esrei. Plain shot. Ketzad, how so? If you had someone sick in his house, Mavarech alav rachmim b'birkas cholim. You should request mercy upon him in birkas cholim, k'fi tzachos l'shano, according to his own formulation. Hayitzarech lefarnasa. If he needed a livelihood, mosif tchina ubakasha b'birkas hashanim. You should add supplication and request in birkas hashanim. Al derech zo b'chol achas mehen. Same thing in each of them. V'im ratza lishol kol trachav b'shmei tefillah. Shoal. If you want to ask all of them in shmei tefillah, you can do it. Aval lo yishal lo b'shlosh rishonos lo b'shlosh acharonos, but not in the first three or the last three. Okay. All right. Now back to the tshuva. Rambam says, so they quote that. V'nahagu sheyachid Yosef k'tfilas reshus ba'avoda ma'amar bazeh halashan. So there is a minhag, I don't know where this is coming from, that a yachid adds like an optional tefillah in the bracha of avoda, and would say, Mamar Bazel Lashon, the following statement: Beharma Rom Yisrael, Shamna Avadcha, Vasham Nidrosh, Es Kol Asher Tzivisanu, Bereach Nichoach, Tirte Osanu, Techazena Einenu, etc. Ha'im Ze Mutter. So can you add that phrase, which means, I'm going to translate it because I think it's relevant. On the exalted mountain of Israel, there we will serve you, and there we will seek everything that you commanded. What? With the reach nichoach, with a pleasing aroma. Tirte osano, have favor with us. Techazena inu. Hayim ze mutter im lav. Is this mutter or not? And I don't know what this meant. Kihu pogea b'zeh tonight, because it interferes with this condition. I think it means it goes against the condition in Hilchos Tefilah Vav that it's not in the shlosh rishonos and shlosh achronos. So what does the Rambam say? Hatshuva lo zo halashon shemosifin ba'avoda ena mazika ve'en ba'ra ve'en ze shol tzrachav ela ze inyan habracha. Yeah, he's saying it's mutter, but the reason why he's saying it's mutter is a little unclear. So he's saying adding in avoda. Right. Okay. So there's two issues he's addressing here. He's saying it's not mazika and it's not. There's no ra. It's funny he says there's no ra. Right. Right. I wouldn't say that there's no ra according to the Rambam. I would say you shouldn't do it. You know, because you shouldn't mess with the text. Right. But okay. The ein zeh shol tzrachav, and it's not shol tzrachav. Ela zeh inyan habracha. It's inyan habracha. So it sounds like the Rambam is saying that why is this not violation of halacha in Perek Vav? Because you're not asking for your own needs. Right. You're asking, yeah. So and it's inyan habracha. So in other words, I'm saying he's addressing 2 points. He's saying, yeah.
I think that is saying that they're also contradictory, that it can't be shol tzarchav and inyan habracha, and that the first and last three, shol tzarchav is inherently not the inyan habracha.
Well, here's the thing, though. So, and I'm sounds like there's multiple ways to learn this, but in the Per Hador edition, in the footnote, they said that it's mashma from the Rambam that you're not allowed to ask for your personal needs in the Shalosh Rishonos and Shalosh Acharonos, but communal needs you are. For example, we are noheg, and even the Rambam says, adding in on Yamim Narayan, Zachrei L'chaim, Melech Havetz B'chaim, and that is a bakasha, but it's not bakasha tzarcha yachid. So he's saying that this does not get into a problem of tzarcha yachid, and since it's in the inyan habracha, then it's not going to interfere with it's not going to be a violation of the nusach thing. Yeah. So the question is, what do we get from all of these sources put together? Yeah.
Sort of saying a lot of sources, specifically mentioning the Birchos Kriyashma, they're different.
You mean with the you mean the yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, so according, yeah. Go ahead.
I guess maybe I'm wrong. Just like those all things he's mentioning are Birchos Kriyashma.
That's true, right? So the ein chashash im. See, I didn't get what he meant. Ein chashash im tiskarev el halashon ha'amitis the taskil bazo halashon baruch Hashem elokeinu melech haolam. After he already says that it's not a huge error to let people say these things, why does he have to then say there's no chashash if you come close to the true lashon? Like you think of anything, then that's better. That's what I didn't get.
Because maybe he's saying maybe it's like you're getting close to the true lashon of the Birchos Kriyashma. And something else was it would be like, as a maybe if you would think that if you get close to the true lashon of a different bracha, then it's like you're saying that bracha, which means you're not saying the other bracha.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah, I'm saying, but like when you're saying with Birchos Kriyashma, getting close to lashon isn't that?
Actually, no, you know what? I'll tell you what I think it is. Actually, I don't think it has to do specifically with Birchos Kriyashma. I think it changes the meaning when you add these phrases. Asher bidvaro mariv aravim is really supposed to be about changing the days and nights every day. But if you add Asher bidvaro mariv aravim b'chachma v'kala ma'asav b'yom hashvi'i v'yakreyu Shabbos, it makes it sound like that whole first phrase is specifically about Shabbos. And same thing with Avas olam beis Yisrael ahamcha ahavta l'man kohanim amusim. That makes it sound like God's Ava for us is for the sake of the oppressed Kohanim, or whatever Amusim means. So I think that's why he has to address this, because there you might argue that is changing the inyan of the bracha if you're no longer making it about like the daily changing of the seasons. Right. So what emerges from the Rambam here? Sounds like as long as you preserve the inyan of the bracha and the Shem and Malchus, then you're good. And preserving the inyan of the bracha really is very broad. That even if you add piyutim in, right? Well, let's put it this way. He's definitely not in favor. He would consider it a change of the nusach if you added piyutim, which would be usher, with shalom aside, right? Like if it's a shalom issue, then machlokas it's a different issue. But he's saying even if these guys didn't he say he seemed to say if you add piyutim with these other inyanim, as long as you preserve the inyan of the bracha, what was it? Yeah, he says you're yotzei, right? Yeah. The funny thing, though, so it does turn out, though. Yep. Yeah, the last one he does. Yeah, ein bar ra sounds like there's nothing bad about it at all. Sounds like b'diavad. Exactly. Yeah. Now it's possible that the reason why is because maybe there's a separate thing about adding bakashos, into the Shemona Esrei that differentiates it from changing the formulation of the ideas.
Maybe there was no change in the Indian at all.
Right. It's just an added bakasha.
Right.
Presumably the Rambam would not. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The fusion were bad because they were adding inyanim and they were poetry, and they also sounds like they were messing with maybe taking away from inyanim also.
Right.
And this is, I'm getting this also from the fact that presumably if we look at the Rambam in Tefilah Perek Beis, when he talks about the additions on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I don't think he says it in a negative way. Yeah, not the Gemara, right? The
Gemara has but the Geonim have
the Geonim have but for the Rambam to be against the Geonim wouldn't be a big thing. The Rambam has, it's at the end of Hilchos Tefilah Perek Beis. So Kol Hashana Kula Chosim bebracha Shlishi Sakel Kadosh ubebracha Achas Esrei Melech Ohev Tzedakah Mishpat ube'aser Yamim Shmor Shoshana Ad Motzei Yom Kippurim Chosim b'Shlishi Samelech Kadosh ube'avas ube'achas Esrei Melech Mishpat. So that's changing the Chasima. That's a different sugya. Yesh Makomos Shenagu b'Aser Yamim Elu L'Hosif bebracha Rishona Zacharinu L'Chaim v'Shniyim Michamocha Av HaRachman Mosifim bebrichas Shmona Esrei Zachor Rachmecha v'chulei. Uchvosh Mosifim bebracha Chrono v'Sefer Chaim v'chein yesh makom shenagu lahosif b'aseres yamim elu bebracha shlishis uv'chein aval b'Rosh Hashanah v'Yom Kippurim minhag pashut hu lahosif b'shlishis uv'chein. Yeah, so someone told me that the Rambam does not approve of it, but he doesn't say he doesn't approve of it, and the Rambam has no qualms about saying minhagim that he doesn't approve of. So I think it turns out that according to the Rambam, you're not free to just add your own stuff. Shemona Esrei is a different thing in terms of like the middle stuff, but with brachos, you can't just like make changes. But if you did, as long as it preserves the inyan, then it's good. And inyan is very, very broad. How broad, we don't fully know yet. Okay, so that's good enough for me for now. I can't bring down halacha l'maaseh.
Not recommended.
You're not recommended. Yeah, and for the 10 reasons we gave in our Tefilah shiur, it's also not recommended. Yeah. Okay.